877-211-5591 or visit sempersolaris.com. IQ8 price the same as IQ7. 26% federal tax credit based on eligibility. Consult your tax advisor. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Some restrictions apply. New customers only. Call or see website for details. Expires 11/30/2021. CSW number 978-152.
My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home. I'm a better neighbor because my service has taught me how important it is to be a team player. My training helps me in my classes when I give attention to detail to the task at hand. My service in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my country safe from threats. Learn more about how you too can live and serve part-time by visiting NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the California Army National Guard. Aired by the California Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hi, this is Big Game James Worthy. Before I was a Hall of Fame basketball player, I played basketball at the Boys and Girls Club. So I'm proud to be partnering with Ford to help them make people's lives better in the communities they serve. The Ford Fund is investing in education and community programs in Southern California to support at-risk middle school students. But that's only the start. Learn more about what the Ford Fund is doing around the world today at fordfund.org.
Dive into the stock market with 21-year-old millionaire Hugh Henney and Dan, the deity of dips, on the podcast Pennies, Going In Raw. From volume and price targets to reverse flips, accumulation, and more. The serious business of trading strategies and financial freedom has never been more fun.
This is life advice. You need to build up your confidence, and it's the same thing with trading. Your first time, it's going to be a little ugly.
Listen to Pennies, Going In Raw on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Visit McKennaCars.com before you purchase your new automobile this holiday season.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kfi Am 640, more stimulating talk. Don't forget that you can catch KFI everywhere and anytime on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Oscar Ramirez, and I'm the host of The Daily Dive, a daily news podcast covering some of the top stories making waves in the news. You can catch a new episode of The Daily Dive Monday through Friday on iHeartRadio, and it's ready for you when you wake up. Here on The Daily Dive Weekend Edition, I'll be bringing you some of the best stories I covered during the week. One of the big stories this week, the iconic Staples Center in Los Angeles will have a new name come Christmas Day. In a branding deal worth $700 million, it will now be known as Crypto.com Arena. Crypto.com allows people to trade in popular cryptocurrencies and boasts over 10 million users. For more on how this is the latest move to get mainstream recognition for cryptocurrency, we'll speak to Anna Hertenstein, reporter at the Wall Street Journal.
This is the cryptocurrency industry's latest move to try to gain more recognition in the mainstream. As you said, it's a really iconic venue, and I really love the symbolism of going from Staples to crypto, going from the kind of paper economy to the digital economy. And essentially, Crypto.com is a cryptocurrency brokerage, an exchange. They're based in Singapore. They were founded in 2016, and they've been spending a lot of money recently to try to get more awareness, more recognition. They did a commercial with Matt Damon recently, and now this is their latest move to try to essentially introduce themselves to the public.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They have other high-visibility sponsorships, deals with Formula One, UFC. I think they purchased on another basketball team, the Philadelphia 76ers, their uniform sponsorship patch. So they've been making a ton of moves to increase their name there. You mentioned, obviously, they're like a brokerage. What else do they do? I think on their website, they said they're the fastest growing crypto app. They have 10 million plus users. What kind of services, what do they all do there?
So they allow their users to trade crypto, everything from the more recognizable ones like Bitcoin to ones that are lesser known. They also let people trade things like NFTs and other digital assets. They do all kinds of stuff.
We're talking about cryptocurrency companies trying to make a splash on this. They're not the first one. There was FTX Arena. They bought the stadium where the arena where Miami Heat play. So this is kind of the trend, as you mentioned, just making a bigger splash on the scene. And sports in particular, they see as a big way to do it, to open themselves to a broader audience.
Yeah, exactly. I interviewed their CEO, and he said exactly that. He sees sports as a really good avenue to get their brand out there. And I think that the scale of the deal, the $700 million that you mentioned, really shows the financial firepower behind cryptocurrencies, or behind the industry, I mean. Bitcoin hit a record high earlier this month. These companies working in the industry have money to spend.
Definitely, and to that point, right, so there's a lot of money behind all of this. I mentioned that FTX Arena, that naming rights deal was $135 million. I don't know how many years that deal was worth. But we're talking $700 million over 20 years. Obviously, the Staples Center is so iconic, as you mentioned, but this is a huge jump from that other deal right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it does show that the owners and operators of the stadium clearly think that Crypto.com will still be around in 20 years. It does give a kind of almost like a sense of legitimacy or trust to the industry, thinking that this will be around.
Right, exactly. And to that point, you made a mention in your article about how sometimes these branding deals don't always go the way they're supposed to, and sometimes the deals turn sour and naming rights have to be given back. Tell us a little bit about some of those examples.
Yeah, I mean, the classic example is Enron. I mean, we all remember what happened to them. And back in 2002, they had to give back the naming rights to a stadium in Houston, where they had to go around and essentially remove their logo from the ballpark. And so, yeah, as you said, there are some examples of these naming rights deals going sour.
Yeah, there was also something that happened with the Patriots stadium, Gillette Stadium. They had to take it over after something went wrong with their previous deal. So, yeah, just a bigger signals, for the cryptocurrency market. As I mentioned, just so many more people are getting to it. We know big investors are, but, a lot of people throughout the pandemic really started trading heavily in cryptocurrencies, altcoins, all sorts of stuff. And people are just looking for a lot of different ways to start trading and investing there. And, this is just a big landmark deal, it seems like, for cryptocurrency, the industry in general, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the kind of companies that have these kinds of deals previously have been in banks, big telecoms. You think about the companies that put their names on stadiums, and now it's apparently crypto as well.
Well, we'll see how that all shakes out. I know a lot of fans in Los Angeles have kind of sounded the alarm and saying, we're still going to call it Staples Center. I'm always going to know it as Staples. So it'll be a transition for sure to Crypto.com arena. Anna Hertenstein, reporter at the Wall Street Journal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
President Biden has been on the wrong side of polls recently amid missteps and verbal flubs. According to a new Politico Morning Consult poll, just 44% of voters approve of his job performance, and worse yet, 48% say he's not mentally fit. For more on the bad poll numbers for Biden, we'll speak to Mark Caputo, national political reporter at Politico.
If you look at Joe Biden's record, his poll numbers really started to kind of collapse after the Afghanistan withdrawal. And then there was the COVID surge and troubles with the economy and concerns about inflation. But, throughout he's never quite recovered. But one of the things that's kind of seldom discussed and has been little polled is American perception of kind of Joe Biden and his health. The reality is like Joe Biden is the oldest president to be sworn into the White House. He's going to turn 79 on Saturday. So we asked a battery of questions concerning his health and mental fitness, the questions we'd asked of President Trump in the 2020 elections and also of Joe Biden. What we found is since October of 2020 to now, the percentage of American voters, U.S. voters, who have concerns about President Joe Biden's health have really kind of skyrocketed. 50% now say that they're concerned or they don't think his physical health is good. 40% say it is good. That's a negative 10-point margin for him.
Yeah.
It was positive for Joe Biden by 19 points in October of 2020. So that's a 29-point shift. It's pretty big. And it kind of reflects what you hear a lot of people talking about. And even Saturday Night Live, they had a skit a few weeks ago where they had old Joe Biden, not new Joe Biden. The old Joe Biden joked that the new Joe Biden wasn't quite so lucid. And there are a lot of people who are talking about it, and we decided to poll it and see what people thought.
Yeah, and, obviously, let's look at some of the evidence that we have out there, right? We haven't heard anything from the president's doctors, obviously, but you see him out there on the, selling the Build Back Better plan and all that stuff and making his public appearances. You hear some flubs when he's speaking, kind of drifting off a little bit. I know some people even said when he starts whispering it's kind of funny. So you just see him out there, and he doesn't look like he necessarily has a lack of energy. It's just a lot of flubs, verbal flubs that are being observed by people.
Also understand, in October of 2020, when voters were asked a question about mental fitness and physical fitness, Joe Biden actually did better by those metrics than Donald Trump did. Joe Biden wound up winning the election, obviously. And now, we haven't compared the two, but Joe Biden is now president. And one of the things that you can say is that after the Afghanistan withdrawal, that's when a lot of news media attention cameras, eyeballs, hearts and minds were tuned to what the president was saying. And a lot of people got more of a good look at Joe Biden. And there's polling now that suggests they don't necessarily like what they're seeing. They don't necessarily like exactly what they're hearing. Now, there could be other reasons that people are having these negative impressions of him, but on a variety of metrics, is he a strong leader? By about a 9-point margin, people say no. And there are these various problems that he's starting to develop. Now, the degree to which people are just having a negative feeling about Joe Biden and expressing that negative feeling whenever they're asked a question, well, we don't quite know. What we do know is that people are souring on him kind of across the board.
How does this look when you break it down along party lines? Obviously, Republicans probably say, yes, he's, his health's not doing so good, mentally unfit, all that. And Democrats are probably the opposite. Independents, how do they feel? How does this break down along party lines?
That's the problem that Biden has. Independents by about a 17-point margin don't think his physical fitness is good. So basically, like, if you were to break things down simply, the Republicans are going to say bad things about Joe Biden. The Democrats are going to say good things. To the degree independents are swing voters, they're breaking against him by pretty big numbers.
Do we see anything else in the poll that stood out to you, aside from these things covering now?
It's not quite in this poll, but when you start to look at the public polling that's out there for Joe Biden's approval rating, among Democrats, the portion of the Democratic base that is starting to sour the most proportionately on Joe Biden are African-American voters. And in our Politico story, I quoted a Republican pollster who had been conducting a recent focus group about a public policy matter in a southern state, didn't want me to say which one. He provided a transcript for me because at the end of this policy focus group, he asked the voters, hey, we just want to talk about Joe Biden, what do you think of him? Now, these are all African-American focus group members or participants. And there were a few folks who expressed a lot of reservations about Joe Biden. One woman who said she wasn't sure if she was going to vote for Joe Biden for his re-election. She says, I don't even know if he's going to be alive.
Mark Caputo, national political reporter at Politico. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on KFI AM 640 and everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. When we come back, we'll tell you about the Esperanza Patient, a woman whose own immune system cured her of HIV.
Rates subject to change without notice. Minimum loan amount and certain restrictions apply. 50% loan to value and 740 FICO credit score. First lien only. This is a dramatization. Cash out will vary. Subject to credit approval. NMLS 3290. Loans made or arranged pursuant to a California financing law license number 6036970. Equal housing lender. Can you believe how much the Garcias house sold for? I know. Home values are so high right now. I wish I could pull about $50,000 from my home's equity without selling. You can. We just pulled cash from our home's equity to redo our backyard this summer. We used IntelliLoan, and get this, our monthly payment actually went down. IntelliLoan offered us a 1.99% rate and APR with no points or lender fees. Wow, 1.99% with no points? And no lender fees. Hello, new pool. Take the number. It's 800-918-6200. 800-918-6200. Or just go to IntelliLoan.com. IntelliLoan. Borrow smart.
Contractor license 1047-781. Duncan Goodrich taught Kenny to do things the right way, not the easy way. And now, every ghetto technician has a digital assistant named Duncan. Digital Duncan is a genius, just like his namesake. Back during the Cold War, the U.S. government came to my dad and said, we need you to build a giant freezer at the test site and bring it down to 50 degrees below zero. They wanted to make sure their nuclear chillers would function if they had to send warheads to Russia during the wintertime. So Dad designed a cascade system that used weird gases like argon and CO2 instead of Freon. He and I got that system down to 50 degrees below zero in the Nevada desert in the summertime. When the U.S. government needs a genius solution, they ask Duncan Goodrich. And when your ghetto technician needs a genius solution, they ask Digital Duncan. Ghetto has been awarded 114 patents for cool stuff we've invented, and we believe number 116 is on the way. Ghetto, G-O-E-D-G-L, will keep you cool, but it's hard to spell.
I heard the Federal Reserve may raise interest rates.
Yes, in fact, mortgage rates have already started going up on the rumor.
That's why we just refinanced owning. We got a 30-year fixed, 2.5% rate, 2.731 APR. And we also took thousands out in cash used for a bunch of other things. Owning made the whole process fast and easy.
Wait up!
Jeffrey! I'm going to call Onan and lock in my refi now.
Call Owning at 8332-OWNING or go to owning.com and lock in a 30-year fixed refi at today's 2.5% rate, 2.731 APR. That's 8332-OWNING or owning.com.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation and the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Subject to credit approval for qualified borrowers. Call 833-303-2161 for terms and conditions. Equal housing lender.
Call Owning at 8332-OWNING or log on to owning.com. That's 8332-OWNING or owning.com.
Yes, I know. I have a calming demeanor. You know, when it's your job, basically, to push people beyond their comfort zones, it's good to make them feel as safe as possible. Like an open-heart surgeon for your home. You'll do fine. No worries. We got it.
Home with Dean Sharp, the House Whisperer, this morning at 9 on KFI AM 640.
More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. In Health and Science News, we'll tell you about an Argentine woman known as the Esperanza Patient. She has become only the second documented person whose own immune system cured her of HIV. She is what's known as a so-called elite controller of HIV, in which the immune system is able to suppress the virus from replicating to very low levels without using antiretroviral treatments. For more on the Esperanza Patient, we'll speak to Benjamin Ryan, contributor to NBCnews.com.
This is a woman, as you said, she's about 30 years old, and she lives in Argentina. She has a daughter that she had last year, and she's pregnant with her second child now. Her first child was born HIV negative. She was diagnosed in 2013, and there were some irregularities in the way that her HIV test came back, so it just seemed that she wasn't developing antibodies to all the different components of the virus, the different viral antigens. So that was sort of a red flag to practitioners in Argentina, and gradually she got connected with a researcher down there who got connected with another one who's a specialist in this type of research at the Wagon Institute in Boston, which is affiliated with Harvard and MIT, and these researchers used very sophisticated technology to comb over 1 billion of her cells, and that included 500 million cells from her placenta after she gave birth. In fact, that was kind of an amazing turn of events that she had given birth, and so they were able to get a bunch of foreign tissue, and they were unable to find what's called any replication-competent virus. And what that means is that any virus that was spliced into the DNA of the cells that would be able to produce viable new copies of HIV. So effectively, they found that her immune system, through some means that they don't know exactly, had basically killed off any last virus that could have repopulated the virus within her body.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally amazing at that point, and, you know, obviously they don't know, right? That's what they're looking into now, but that gives people hope, right? And you mentioned in the article, there's an estimated 38 million people globally living with HIV right now, so this is something that's extremely important. One of the things about the Esperanza Patient, you know, she's she wants some anonymity with all of this, right? That's why they're calling her that. But there's these group of people that are so-called elite controllers of HIV, an estimated 1 in 200 people. And this is kind of where some of this hope lies in, right? To figure out how these people are able to suppress the virus.
Right. And I don't want to say people should have hope that perhaps there are 1 in 10 million people or 1 in 20 million people whose bodies just happens to be able to do this magnificent feat of beating HIV on its own. But where the hope is the notion that researchers can try to figure out what happened, in some way harness it or replicate it through some sort of therapeutic means. And as you said, so the Esperanza Patient, as well as another woman by the name of Maureen Willenberg, who's a 67-year-old, lives in San Francisco. They both are members of the class of elite controllers, and these are people whose immune systems, through some means that they don't quite very well understand just yet, are able to control viral replication without the need for antiretroviral treatment. It's possible they have some sort of very aggressive killer T-cell response to HIV infection, but this isn't something that we see in other people. So this is something that researchers have been studying for many years to try to better understand. And so Maureen Willenberg and the Esperanza Patient, in both cases, it seems that their T-cell response was so strong that it was able, as I said, to basically kill off any replication-competent virus that's hidden in these cells.
I mentioned that there were a couple of other cases of men who research said they were able to stop the HIV in them as well. That was kind of a different case, though, and we heard about them already. There was an American and then one from London, but they had cancer, a very specific cancer. They received stem cell transplants, and that's kind of how they got over it. But those are some other interesting aspects to it too, because it's not, they were able to functionally cure them, but they say that's not really a cure for the most amount of people. They had an extrapolating case with cancer. The stem cell transplant is pretty strenuous on the person, and that's not really a course of treatment for a lot of people.
What happened in those cases, it was two men, as you said, each had cancer. They had a kind of blood cancer, lymphoma or leukemia in each case, which is treatable through a stem cell transplant. And what happens at a stem cell transplant is essentially you're given somebody else's immune system. First, they have to ablate or kill off your own immune system, which is a very devastating and toxic process, and then they give you someone else's stem cells, which repopulate your body, hopefully, with immune cells from the other person. Now, there's a small percentage of people from European descent who have a natural immunity to HIV. Their immune cells lack what's called a certain co-receptor onto which HIV attaches in order to begin the process of infecting a cell. So if your immune system lacks these co-receptors, HIV basically can't get in the door. It sort of lacks the knob to turn the door to get into those cells. And that's what happened in these cases with these two men. The first case was written up in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2009, a guy named Timothy Ray Brown. And the second case was announced in 2019, again, as you said, a man in London. And I just spoke with the researcher of that case study in the past few days, and he was able to tell me that whereas before he thought the man was probably cured of HIV in this case, now he thinks he was almost definitely cured. And the reason why they have to be very cautious is because you just never know after a certain amount of time if HIV might come roaring back. And the reason that is when HIV infects a person, it establishes what they call the viral reservoir. Now, there are all the sort of active immune cells, visual effects that are going around and doing active things. And then there are what are called long-lived stem cells, or long-lived memory cells. And those are cells that are not replicating new copies of the virus, but yet are still infected. And because they're not actually working through the machinery of making a new virus, the antiretroviral therapy can't see the virus in those cells and can't go after them because it only works when the virus is being replicated. And so that's why it can hide for long periods of time in these reservoir cells. And then if you were to go off your antiretroviral after a time, they would sort of come back to life and start repopulating the body with new virus.
And that's why it's so difficult to get a handle on HIV. It can sit dormant for so long and be suppressed well enough and then pop back up. And you wrote another article talking about kind of the road ahead for an HIV cure and HIV cure research. They call it cure research, but people are very hesitant to use that word because of what you just spoke to. It can pop up. So tell me a little bit more broadly about some of these other ways of trying to cure HIV. There's multiple fronts that they're doing. You know, there's gene therapy, something called kick and kill, something called block and lock, and then other vaccines that they're hoping that can work on this.
Right, so there's so much that's going on in the genetic field these days with CRISPR-Cas9 in particular, which is essentially a kind of scissors that can snip and edit in different gene sequences. So, you know, ideally you'd have some sort of therapy that you could inject into somebody and it would go in and it would find all the HIV in the cells and snip it out. It's a lot easier said than done, of course. So essentially they're trying to find ways that are less toxic and more scalable of recapitulating what we've seen in the American man and the London patient, as he's called. But, you know, that would not require an actual stem cell transplant and gene therapy, that kind of thing, which, you know, would not be ethical to give to people if they weren't already facing a fatal blood cancer. So that's one avenue. And so kick and kill is essentially trying to use some sort of agent that would wake up all of those resting cells that aren't replicating new copies of the virus, so that then some other therapy, that's the kick part, and some other therapy with the kill part would come in and kill the cells that are infected. There's been a lot of failures in that realm of research over the years. It's been pretty discouraging. And a similar, somewhat opposite way of doing it would be block and lock, which is essentially trying to figure out where those cells are that are harboring latent copies of the virus, and then just keep them from ever waking up again. And so in a way that seems to be what some lead controllers have done. What they found in research is that it seems that their immune system has preferentially killed off cells in which the virus is capable of replicating, and what's left over is virus that's been spliced into the cellular DNA in kind of a remote dead zone that's too far away from the levers that start up replication to be able to have any potential effect on the body and to be able to spew out new copies of the virus. And then again, there's other ways of sort of hopefully prompting the immune system to kind of do a better job of going after the virus, and that would be something along the lines of a therapeutic vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing. I know we've made huge strides in all of this, and there's just great news out of the Esperanza Patient. It gives a lot of people hope, you know, that the immune system can do it on its own. Benjamin Ryan, contributor to NBCnews.com. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on KFI AM 640 and everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'll be back with some more top stories from the week, but first, let's get an update from the KFI newsroom.
KFI. News on the hour, on the hat, and when it breaks. I'm Johnny D'Agostini in the KFI 24-hour newsroom. We must acknowledge that the jury has spoken. That's according to President Biden after jurors in the Kyle Rittenhouse case acquitted the teen of all the charges against him. He was on trial for killing 2 men and injuring a third last year during social justice protests in Kenosha. The IRS says almost all the money seized by the service's Criminal Investigation Unit over the past fiscal year was cryptocurrency. The unit recovered $3.5 billion in crypto, about 93% of overall seizures. Stocks are mixed to end the week on Wall Street. Tech shares pushed higher as global COVID-19 worries weighed on broader markets. United, Delta, and Boeing all declined amid a pullback in airline and travel stocks. And the Tiger King is no longer in Texas. Joe Exotic has been transferred from a federal prison in Fort Worth to a federal medical center in North Carolina. The social media account run by his attorney claims he has been diagnosed with cancer. Really local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom, I'm Johnny D'Agostini.
Checking KFI traffic, we do have a crash in the Mid-City area, 10 east at Crenshaw. That is blocking the right lane. 2 roads meet on the 10 east on Rosemead Boulevard, a 2-car collision blocking the left lane. And look out in Anaheim, 91 eastbound, it's a 5 freeway crash there blocking the carpool lane. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Jonathan Weiss.
Is your house earthquake ready? The Earthquake Brace and Bolt program is offering $3,000 grants to strengthen older houses against earthquake damage. Apply today at www.earthquakebracebolt.com. Registration is now open through December 1st.
As a Hall of Fame running back, Eric Dickerson knows a winner when he sees one.
That's right. The all-new, all-electric F-150 Lightning is truly unbeatable.
That's because it comes with a Pro Power onboard generator that can power your home, your job site, or your next big tailgate.
Sounds like another winner by Ford F-Series.
You heard it here first. Reserve your 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning today at buyfordnow.com.
And visit your Southern California Ford dealer. Tell them ED sent you.
What would you do with $1 million? You just might find out the answer if you are the lucky winner of the $1 Million Moment at Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel on November 29th. It's the biggest cash prize in Yamava history. One winner, $1 million. Use your Club Serrano card to participate in qualifying promotions all November long. Visit Yamava.com/million for full details, and you could become an instant millionaire in one moment. The $1 Million Moment. Only at Yamava Resort and Casino. Yamava.com. Must be 21 or over to enter. Please gamble responsibly.
It takes 2 vaccines to help protect you this season, the flu and COVID-19. And now you can get both shots at the same visit. Learn more at cdc.gov/vaccine.
Sponsored by Sanofi Pasteur.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids.
Donate your car today with 1-877 Cars for Kids. We're a recognized 501c3 charity organization, so you'll receive a maximum tax deduction. What's more, you'll receive a vacation voucher of 3 days and 2 nights. Also on the web at carsforkids.com.
1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate.
With school back in session, there's plenty to worry about. CalHope can help with free COVID-19 emotional support. Call 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
The 11th annual KFI Pastathon is here, helping Chef Bruno provide over 25,000 meals to hungry kids every week. Here's what you do. Donate at pastathon.com. All donations go to Carolina's Club, feeding children in Southern California. Donate $10 or more during checkout at any Smart & Final store in California, Arizona, or Nevada to provide 14 meals, courtesy of Barilla Pasta. Drop off your donation at the Anaheim Lighthouse now through December 4th. More locations at pastathon.com. The 11th annual KFI Pastathon with Smart & Final, Barilla Pasta, and KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640, heard everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. This next week could be very bad for travel. Millions of Americans are expected to travel for Thanksgiving, and if you're heading out, you should be expecting delays. One of the biggest mysteries is how many TSA agents will be in compliance with a vaccine mandate for federal workers set for November 22nd. The government doesn't think there will be any delays, but long wait times are inevitable, as TSA employees are leaving for other reasons too. Also in the mix, a significant storm and strong cold front could hit the U.S. Northeast and Midwest next week, potentially wreaking more havoc on travel plans. This weather pattern is expected to start over the weekend and extend into early next week. For more on how holiday travel could be a mess, we'll speak to Suzanne Rowan Kelleher, staff writer at Forbes.
Thanksgiving weekend is always a huge travel weekend. It's usually the top weekend of the whole year. This year is going to definitely be just right up there. So what happened was that in mid-October, the TSA administrator, David Pekoski, told CNN that there was about 60% of the TSA workforce that had been vaccinated. And he expected that number to go quite a bit higher in the next few weeks. So since I covered that story, I would check in with the TSA every week and say, how are the numbers? Do you have new numbers? And I kept getting, just sort of, we don't have anything new, we don't know anything new. And that happened right up to this week. And then something else happened, which was yesterday. There was a hearing at the House Homeland Security Committee. It was the Subcommittee for Transportation and Maritime Security. And one of the people testifying was Edward Kelly, who is the president of the union representing federal workers. So he represents 700,000 federal workers, including TSA employees. And he was asked, does he know how many people have been vaccinated at the TSA? And he said he didn't know. Everybody seems to be going with this 60% number, which is the latest. Now, I suspect that number has gone quite a bit higher in the last 5 weeks, but we just don't know where that went.
Yeah, and, the bottom line they said was, the long wait lines are just going to be there, which is not what anybody wants to hear. They're saying that when it comes to the vaccine mandate, that they're not going to really see any disruptions there. They think they'll be fine. But it's not just that. They're saying that they're seeing a lot of turnover. People are just quitting because, low wages, working conditions, basically what we've been seeing in various other sectors right now throughout the country. So either way, they're kind of saying, might not see many disruptions here, but looking maybe towards December and the rest of the holiday season, there could be something happening.
I think there's going to be long lines at Thanksgiving. There's long lines even under the best of circumstances. People need to get to the airport early. I mean, that's just kind of a given. You might luck out if you're going in a morning flight, that those flights tend to kind of take off more on time. If you're flying out of a smaller regional airport, you probably have better luck. But people are just going to have to kind of bring their patients with them and assume that they're going to come upon these long lines. And you're right, that part of the problem is the union president, Everett Kelly, actually pushed back a bit to some of the members of Congress who were saying, well, this vaccine mandate is making this problem. And he was saying, look, there's going to be lines because of staffing. We have staffing shortages. So it's a combination. It's sort of a perfect storm that's happening. And you're right, all across the country in all different industries. The airline industries, you mentioned those delays because of weather over the last few months, but that is also because of shortages. So what's happened is that people have, in all different industries, have left their jobs. Often they took, retirement packages or, exit packages, and there hasn't been the staffing to kind of catch up. So I just think that people need to kind of go in there with a reality check that is what expected to be. Expect there to be a wait. Right. Get to the airport a lot earlier than you were planning on it, and then enjoy your holiday.
And a little bit more back to the vaccine mandate, because a lot of people have sought religious and medical exemptions for all of that. There is also this push by some of the unions to maybe push back the deadline to January 4th. That's the other deadline that they have for federal contractors and whatnot. They're saying maybe just push it back till after the holidays, and maybe things could be a little bit better.
That might be something that was something that Everett Kelly said in the panel yesterday. He said that the union wants to push it back to January 4th so that both federal workers and federal contractors who work often side by side have the same deadline. This vaccine mandate, though, was announced in July. People have known about it since July. I'm expecting, actually, that the number of employees of the TSA that have been vaccinated is quite a bit higher, maybe in the 80s now. I think that the Customs and Border Patrol had numbers in the 80 around now, and so I'd expect it to be kind of in that ballpark, maybe even a little bit higher. But look, like the vaccine mandates have worked at the airlines. There are definitely people who look for the exemptions, but that's the minority. When the airlines did the vaccine mandate up into the 90s, it jumped, and they were. The Delta CEO asked that they got stuck at 75%. They were handing out carrots, trying to incentivize people. They got stuck at 75%. And then they didn't do a mandate in the sense, Delta did not do a mandate in the sense of saying you get vaccinated or you lose your job. But what they said, I think this really kind of amounts to a mandate. They said, well, if you don't get vaccinated, we're going to charge you $200 every month extra for your health insurance. So that's another, that was definitely a stick to kind of push people.
That's going to push them to adopt it that much quicker, definitely at that point.
Exactly. And then they jumped up, their numbers jumped way too. So they've seen this all over travel, that when the mandates come in, the numbers definitely go up. And the other thing to keep in mind is that there are a lot of people pushing for the vaccine mandates, not just for the employees, but for passengers. As you know, that's part of the international travel. When people come into the U.S. now, they have to be vaccinated. And there was just a couple of dozen members of Congress that are pushing for that to be drifted over to the U.S. travel. And when you look at surveys, since, 5-6 months now, steady, the American people are behind it. Every survey says 2/3 of Americans want vaccine mandates for passengers. And, there was a poll yesterday that came out of Morning Consult. Only 45% of Americans feel comfortable flying right now. So, yeah, it's an ongoing story. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Suzanne Rowan Kelleher, staff writer at Forbes covering travel trends. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on Kfi Am 640. When we come back, we'll tell you how the two main political parties are divided into 9 distinct categories.
Rates subject to change without notice. Certain restrictions and minimum loan amount requirements apply. 60% LTV and 620 FICO score. Subject to credit approval. By refinancing your existing loan, your total finance charges may be higher over the life of the loan. NMLS 3290. Loans made or arranged pursuant to California Financing Law License number 6036970. Equal housing lender.
Home loan rates are incredibly low. If you recently refinanced and your rate is higher than 2%, call IntelliLoan. Here's Steve who refinanced last year and was certain he had a great rate.
I refinanced last year and I saved a ton of money. I thought I had a great rate, so doing another refinance wasn't even a consideration. But just recently I got curious. Could I save money again? I was shocked to find out I could save money. I thought I had a great rate. If you've refinanced recently and you haven't asked if you could save money again, you should ask.
Be like Steve and ask again. IntelliLoan is offering a 1.99% fixed rate in APR with no points and no lender fees. A 1.99%. Call 1-800-918-6200. That's 1-800-918-6200 or go to IntelliLoan.com.
IntelliLoan. Borrow smart.
Invert your thinking with a free upgrade to the IQ8 microinverter, the world's only microinverter that provides instant energy backup for a power outage from Semper Solaris, your local veteran-owned solar and battery storage contractor. Here's veteran, founder and owner, Kelly Shawhead.
In the military, when you give your word, it's just as your word. Work hard and keep your word. That's what we do every single day. Heard about Semper Solaris and found out that they were veterans. I knew they were going to do the job right.
Add Tesla Powerwall and be ready for blackout.